Good morning. I slept a lot. Took a sleeping pill and I think that helped. It didn't help, but it helped. I've been watching a lot of Elton Brown's cooking videos on YouTube. What a national treasure. Let's hope he does that a long time. I also found this book on my mother's bookshelf, which is a curated collection of the 1001 Arabian Nights Scheherazade, which is something that Buckminster Fuller talked about a lot, actually, in Synergetics. One or two, one of those. Scheherazade numbers, mirror numbers. Didn't really make a lot of sense when I was reading it, but I did the work, read all 50 pages or however much. I wonder what the largest Scheherazade number is. That's like prime or whatever. Anyway, I don't know the point that he was driving at, but mirror symmetry in crystallography in nature. That makes sense. Chirality. What is that other term? Enantiomorphic. In geometry, left hand, right hand. But I read this book was a gift from my uncle, who's still with us, from 1996. My sister was 10 years old, and it was to my sister, and I assume she never read it. But I read the introduction, and this was published in 1909. I think they call that the Edwardian era. And when you read the introduction, there's so much pith and poetry and grace in the writing, and it's like a Tennyson poem, a piece of one, and it's so graceful and really nice to read. I feel like we've lost a lot in modernity, and I'm not a Luddite. I'm here like making my videos, using technology, but I also keep thinking about one of the last things that I talk about in Appendix 3. Right? Is Quentin Tarantino a felon? Right? Did he solicit HIV-infected blood to try to give me AIDS with psychic occultism? I know that he's fucked up enough to think of it. Would he actually do it? I don't know. He's a sick man. He's sick. He'd get something out of this, But one of the last things that I talk about is, I suppose, like epigenetic memory. Anyone who's familiar with the work of Rupert Sheldrake knows that his whole life's work is this idea called morphic resonance, which is essentially spiritual atheism. I don't really know how else to put it, but he says that each compounding generation builds upon itself, and intellectually it is sound, right? So if we say, okay, that's probably true, why not? It's even like Darwinian on some level. But if we say, okay, like the giraffe, right, makes the giraffe because it's thinking about like the giraffe that made it, and on and on and on and on and on, all the way back. If we go forward, if we push that idea forward, right? When we think about the internet, we think about, right? If we say that our behavior, like in our bodies, right, is reflected in our epigenetic memory, like when our cells divide, right? Then is it not in fact kind of possible that eventually, if we continue down this road of having such a fixation on our visual cortex, that by saturating our eyes constantly the way we do with data, with material, with videos, could we not, right, not only increase the density of our optic nerves, which run crisscross over the top of our brain, but also, right, because so many people, they hold their phones like, this is like cinematic, but they hold it like this, right? That if you're watching a video and you're like watching something and then you're reading the subtitles, right? This is my criticism that I have with people. That you're setting a foundation intellectually for whitewash, right? That you're setting a foundation to not actually comprehend anything. That if you want to do something, you have to do one thing, right? If I want to learn how to play guitar, I have to play guitar. Like I can't right? And so my point is that epigenetics, morphic resonance, right? If we continue allowing babies, 6 months old, a year old, small children, to begin saturating their visual cortex, saturating their eyes, saturating their epigenetic memory with constant boom, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because they're watching the video and then they're reading it, and they're not doing anything, just to be clear. They're not really reading it, they're not really watching anything. But does it not stand to reason that as a result, that if morphic resonance has intellectual validity, it could not result in a true biological evolution, where the brain, right, the soul, right, the optic nerve, all these things, right, in the strain of not being able to process all the information, that at some point in the next century, a baby will emerge that no one will know about until they're born, that has 4 pupils and irises instead of 2, where they're stacked, just like the video. You get it? Because you're watching and you're reading. And then the optic nerve is twice as big. Or would it be 4? Right? This is where we're kind of stepping into, but I think it would be 2. It would be stacked vertical. There would be 2, right? Where there's another one below this one. You get it? Where they're on top of each other. And on top of this one. Right? I feel like that could kind of happen, and then it ends up like spider eyes. Well, there's a bunch of pupils and irises, and our optic nerves are huge inside of our brain. And so the other side of that is like the gray alien, where the eyes just get bigger, the optic nerves get wider. But I think that's right where there's 4 optic nerves instead of 2, and there's 4 pupils and irises instead of 2. Is that impossible? Right? Is it impossible that Sydney Sweeney wants to fuck me? I don't think that's impossible. It's just all there in the novel. I sent an email yesterday blasting him, Leo DiCaprio. It's just funny now. It's just funny. The thought of everyone looking at Leo and saying, man, how's it feel to be Quentin Tarantino's stud? Because, right, that's all anyone's ever going to see you as, isn't it? Pretty funny. Every time Brad Pitt does anything, the only thing anyone sees is a serial rapist. Every time his girlfriend spreads her legs for him, she sees the serial rapist. Oh, does that get you hot? Is that him tying up women and making jokes about me having AIDS while he's forcibly raping them? That's pretty funny, isn't it? Right? What a glamorous movie star. Right? So, here's the real point, right? Newsflash, critics, newsflash, everyone who wants to say I'm schizophrenic. I'm supposed to believe that a single journalist that I've written can't even reach out to me and tell me that there's no validity to my claims? Right? Or did they say, if we find out that you spoke to him, we're gonna sue you? That's probably a lot more likely, isn't it? Right? As to why a single, right? You understand what I'm saying right now? They're oh, there's no truth to my claims. Oh, a single journalist can't confirm that his representation denies any of my claims? Or have they built up such a ridiculous legal quagmire that they have no choice but to just hammer all of them. Litigation, litigation, litigation. Right? If you speak to this man at all, we will sue you. But they can't sue me. You get it? It's like, it is. It's like a weird kind of like quasi-criminal sort of scenario. And so eventually, right? I suspect, right? A journalist is going to break or a lawyer is going to break, right? That they're going to reach out to me and say, okay, dude, I'll help you file. That's like, I kind of like to see that occurring, or it won't. And, right? So Quentin is a deep sadist, right? He's a deep masochist because he hates himself, right? Because he's biologically broken. And that's what I put in the email. It's like, oh, like, God, you know, like, this is like the most fucking serious allegations that anyone could put on anyone. This isn't like, I'm not saying like, oh, you sing off key. That's not what I'm saying, right? I'm saying you're a deep sadist, right? Who controls everyone psychologically and spiritually. Right? I'm saying that, right? Brad Pitt is a serial rapist, right? Like, this is, right? It's not really the same thing as singing off key, is it? It's not really saying that you got bad pitch, that you're a bad actor. But I've said that too. Right? My point is that why don't they sue me? Like, that's like, isn't that 12,000 subscribers, right? You think if I had 5 million subscribers, this thing would still be going on? Think they wouldn't have said, okay, that's no more. Right? But I have no money, right? He's tortured me to such a degree, I can't work anymore. Can't work anymore until I see those women in person, right? Not because they're fine, not because I want to hold them down with my hands, not with a rope, right? But because I know what time it is. And there can't be anything between us. You understand? Psychic eye to psychic eye. Any of these fucking psychics I've been writing, they all know what time it is. And so this is like what I was saying in my crying video. There's like this real sort of ethical kind of line in the sand right now. Where if you want to write about astrology, like, you want to charge $500 an hour for a reading? Right? How's this for a spiritual battle for the soul of the world? You get it? Satanic Luciferian man, exacting sadistic black magic evil upon everyone. Oh, not my fight. Oh, not my fight. Right? Oh, I'm a spiritual warrior and I'll charge you $500 an hour to tell you, right, what the stars say. But when the real deal is right there in front of me. Right? You get it? And so it's all kind of threadbare, isn't it? It's all kind of like, it's becoming more and clearer to me that like I'm a child of God, right? Like I'm a child of light, white magic, black magic. So it couldn't have gone the way that he wanted. It just couldn't have, because he's so deeply sick. He's so deeply ill. He's never understood this thing. Right? I mean, he's Faust, you know? He's made this like sort of Faustian covenant, right? Where as long as, right, what does he say in Faust? It's, as long as I don't care to hold the moment, something like that, right? As long as I can keep learning, right? With Mephistopheles, right? But eventually, right? Oh, dude, that's perfect. That's so fucking perfect. This is hilarious. Right? You get it? He's in his moment right now. He doesn't want to keep learning. He wants to stay right where we are. Wow. I could cry right now. Mephisto's turning on him. And that's how it always occurs. Right? Now you can borrow from the Almighty every time you go to church, right? On the Sabbath, on the day of rest, right? I'm not going to say that I'm devout. I'm not going to say that, but I am. I'm more devout than most. I'm not going to say that I read the Bible every day. I'm not going to say that all these things. Right? But when I started going to Catholic Mass, however long ago, because of Quentin, there's no other reason. I don't need to go to church, Once you know, you don't need to go. But there were so many stories that the priest would tell, young guy, nice guy, not devout, not a power holder. He's a dumbass, basically. But he told all these wonderful stories about people seeing people who converted, who converted out of all these different religions because they saw something in that moment. They saw people in like true communion with God, that the Holy Spirit was like possessing them, and they felt this like power, this like moment, And I felt that in a real way through the meditation of the Hail Mary, right? Through the Catechism, through all these things. And so someone else could say, "Oh, isn't that like a derivation? Isn't that like a corruption of like raw divinity?" And I would say that no, that's actually not true at all. It doesn't mean it doesn't become boring. Now, any Buddhist who meditates for 5 hours a day will tell you there's any number of times during that 5 hours where he wishes that he could be like smashing hot pussy, you know what I'm saying? But it's about being still. It's about like recognizing that the forces of nature are controlled by forces that we cannot control. And so by the Catechism, by the Hail Mary, right? You bring your mind out of the mundane and into the spiritual. That's the point, right? And so this is what he's lacking. This is what he's never... I don't know who brought him up. God damn, I wish I could meet his teacher, Like, God damn. Maybe he really is like me, and he doesn't have one. Did he see Manly Palmer Hall speak? I think he could have. Definitely could have. He was there, in that town. He's too young to have seen the really good shit. 80s, right? Could have seen him speak for like an hour and 15 minutes. Anyway. Right? Esoteric understanding comes at a cost. Right? Spiritual wisdom comes at a cost. Right? Monetary, worldly power comes at a cost. I could have sacrificed some of my divinity in exchange to become an instant movie star and smash hot ass. But in exchange for the sovereignty of my mind, in exchange for Quentin having an unhealthy psychological relationship with me. And so Quentin is so deeply ill in his mind that he could not accept that I don't respect his magic, and has spent all of this time seeking to compel me to suicide, which has engendered a true psychiatric collapse within himself. He has created a case study in all of our minds that we have no choice but to reckon with for the rest of our lives. It is my contention, right, that if he has been holding these women from me, and I don't really see anything else beyond that he's a complete lunatic, or that I'm a lunatic, like, yes, like, sure, like, that's, like, it's all in my head, like, yes, very, very lazy answer intellectually, whatever, right? But if he is holding them from me, then he really has. He's created this condition in all of our minds, especially in these women's minds, where it's done. It's done. Like, everything that he wanted, he got it. Right? And he took the back road Luciferian way to get it. To where, right, he wanted me, right? He wanted me, right, to possess all these women physically. Because he's infertile, because he has a genetic deficiency. And now I possess them spiritually, which will lead to me possessing them physically. That's the point. Right? Is it true? Is it not true? Right? Why are there no pictures of David Fincher on the set of The Continuing Adventures of Cliff Booth? Why are there no pictures of Quentin's baby shower? Right? Why are there no... You understand like what I'm saying right now? Right? That Quentin sets up these kind of like quasi-schizophrenic barriers between himself and the world. to hide the fact that he's deeply broken and flawed in his mind. Right? And so what does that represent? Right? Doesn't represent anything because he's not actually making any kids, is he? And so that must mean something, doesn't it? Right? I wanted to say something about morphic resonance in relation to Leo, but Leo's not his son. Right? It's Daniela's son. Yeah, are those kids in that house? Right? Right? I don't know what the truth is. Right? To be so concerned and just like, I don't know, I don't understand what the decency is in Hollywood. Right? Is it all up Steven Spielberg's ass? Is that like, right? The cynicism, the Crowleyism, the black magic. It has to, we have to complete the ritual one way or the other. Right? Quentin doesn't have the stamina to last 10 years of this. I do. Right? Right? Those women, right, they're all so miserable. They're all so miserable at like the way that he's been treating them, the way he's been behaving, everyone around this thing. Right? Right? Who's a journalist? Right? My point is that anyone who has reached out to him, right, they've all referred them to lawyers or said, we're going to sue you. That's the real point. That if you report on this, right, if you help this man, right, if you tell him, here's a lawyer that will help you, right, all these things. Like, why are we so opposed to the truth? Like, what is the truth? That's the point. That's the point. Is Quentin, like, this is my point. This is like the pseudo kind of like schizophrenic barrier that he puts like between the world and himself. Right? That he's so deeply addicted to subtlety and guile, cunning, manipulation, control, that he can't even let these women look me in the eye and say, we love Quentin, we don't love you, if that's the truth. Right? That's the point. That it has to be this like convoluted sort of mess where like, oh, like, right? My point is that I gave him my whole heart. Right? Willingly. I never expected anything other than him to say, right, I appreciate you writing. I can't cast you. Right? But if the truth is that the women were all like, this is a fucked up movie and he's awesome, he's so talented and we want to do the movie with him. But in order to do that, he needed to see me submit to him as a psychic. Then it does actually make sense why he would exact a completely evil, right, schizophrenic, wicked campaign against me, right, to compel me to suicide so that he could still feel like he has control. He's lost control of his wife. He's lost control of everything. Everyone around him, they're all like, I can't look at you anymore. I can't speak to you. I can't, like, you disgust me on a fundamental level. I would be really surprised if anyone around him was like, good for you. Like, yeah, cool, buddy. Like, fuck that guy. No, everyone's up to here with it. How many times I got to tell Ari Emanuel, let me fuck your wife and we're good. So, right? Share the video. Help me get more subscribers. Right? Let me know what you think.